You're listening to DraftKings Network.
We are audiostack.ai.
Combining AI writing, the best synthetic voices,
with production and delivery.
Be it ads, podcasts, or VOs for video.
Just like this ad.
How would you utilize AI audio? For free.
Go to audiostack.ai/contest.
Give us just a few details.
And you could replace this spot and be heard by millions.
See webpage for T's and C's. audiostack.ai/contest.
Greg Cote is here, and he is at the center of Canadian controversy. He's thrilled today because the Panthers are up 2-0, but I have a question for you, Stugotz, on how it is that jinxes work.
Yeah.
Mike Ryan did not want us to sell T-shirts in the merch store, LeBatardAF.com, McOverrated T-shirts, because he was afraid of jinxing, infuriating the best player in hockey.
Right.
And my question to you is, because we started selling them before game one, are we good, or can he get motivated and furious in game three, even though we sold the shirts before game one?
So we sold the shirts. No, we're good. You could sell the shirts, continue to sell the shirts. I mean, the guy has no goals through 2 games of the Stanley Cup Finals. Greg Cote was right. I mean,
it's a little early to be saying that, but Greg Cote is acting today. He walked in like Stephen A. Smith in a lavender suit. He's feeling very good about himself.
Right. I approve of those T-shirts. I'm wondering what my cut will be since it's my phrase and everything. But the lawyers will be talking about that. You don't got to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm all for it. Anything could happen from here.
Yeah.
I'm not gloating. I'm not Greg Gloaty. We're waiting, but right now we're feeling good that our Connor McDavid is overrated take is proving accurate, unless he wins this Stanley Cup, which it doesn't look like it right now.
Did you tell Dan to lawyer up?
Well, this is an ongoing thing. I get it. It's I would think that a phrase that I create would be my intellectual property, but before I can call up my merch store and say, hey, we got to get this T-shirt out, it's already on the Batard and Friends network or whatever it's called. So it's fine.
The argument can be made. I mean, you didn't even do it on this show, so they can't even say you did it on this show. They own it. You did it in the newspaper.
Yeah, that's fair. I would have the Miami Herald lawyer call Meadowlark and complain, except that I think in the cutbacks, the Herald no longer has a lawyer. That may or may not be true. Just a cheap shot.
Somebody's writing in here, Billy is on a roll on his Twitter account, giving everyone the first-rate hockey coverage everyone deserves. At first, I thought he was doing his routine of copying Roy's account, but nope, he's just providing great insight. He should be 1B as Meadowlark hockey correspondent, obviously with Roy being number 1.
Huh.
I'm not here to step on any toes. I'm just, talking puck. That's what we do.
Yep.
I knew that you and Tony would get involved as soon as Rodriguez started scoring goals.
Well, he's been here the whole season, man.
I know,
Us Ice Cats fans know that.
No, but it took
not
them
new to this party.
It took them being up 2-0 and Rodriguez scoring 3 goals for Billy to wander over and be like, I want to partake in the analysis.
No, falsehoods. I was covering that game before Rodriguez even stepped foot on the ice, or skate on the ice, if you will.
Here's the funny thing about Rodriguez being the hero. There was chatter on social media about, Cuban Miami going to bang pots and pans because Rodriguez is the star of the Panthers. His surname is Portuguese. He doesn't speak Spanish. And as he said after the game, I guess I got to get at that and start learning it, but that's not my priority now. So it's funny.
He was just, you could tell they asked him about it, his heritage. He's just like, yeah, my dad's Portuguese. I don't speak Spanish. It's nice to be embraced. He was just like, kind of like, thanks.
Name works for me.
I think it's important, though, that that's not his priority at this very moment.
It is.
Right now, the priority is bring home Lord Stanley, and then we'll get to Spanish.
Exactly.
I think his priority, like Larinaga, when he got to town and put the Enye over his N, I think Rodriguez's priority should be to get that S changed to a Z immediately.
Well, Larinaga's priority should be winning again, or he's going to be out of town real quick.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz podcast.
Today's episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is brought to you by Peloton.
I am not making up the two stories I'm about to tell you right now. Not making either of these stories up.
Okay.
This morning, I got the question from somebody who just sort of recognized me. How about those Gators? They meant the Panthers. They weren't talking about super regionals. They meant
one of the great super regional games of all time, though, for the Gators.
Agreed,
I'm serious.
Agreed, but that's not what I was being asked about. I was being asked about the Panthers. Somebody confused them with the Gators. This one was funnier, though. A legitimate question. Where is Edmonton? Is it in Texas? Because of the Oilers. They thought the Oilers...
makes sense.
Yeah. I mean,
right. They had a football team called the Houston Oilers.
It makes some sense. But I would say that South Florida has been... the southest of Florida has been a little slow to get to what it is that's happening with this hockey team, which is now 2 wins away from holding what is it is a very tough trophy to win. And I legitimately can't believe I just watched a hockey game in which that offense and that superstar could do nothing. I thought the series, like the way that Edmonton's not going to win with defense, they got to beat you by scoring a good amount, not a little bit, a good amount.
1 goal through 2 games, not going to do it.
Well, but it's not even just that, right? Because they played much better in the game that they didn't score than in the one that they did. They got nothing yesterday. Like, they were completely neutralized. It's the worst game they've played this postseason, and I felt like that happened to them. That was done to them. And then, of course, they just injure Florida's most important player.
The last 4 periods, the Panthers have been the better team, I think. The third period in Game 1, the Oilers forwards had 4 shots on 5 versus 5 last night. The Panthers defense versus the penalty kill for the Panthers, and the Panthers just smothering them, not letting anything inside. Everything's coming from the outside. The Panthers are just... They're impressive so far defensively.
P1 I gave to the Oilers yesterday. P's 2 and 3 though. Another story.
Mm-hmm. The big P's.
Yep.
Greg Cote walked in today as if he had one of those because he was feeling very good about himself.
Baby,
for a big P, Stugotz. Come on, Stugotz. Come on. Greg Cote finally got not just Canada mad, but got confirmation that this is indeed gotten to McDavid. He has learned through reporting, Greg, you can tell the story. He has learned through reporting that McDavid absolutely knows who's insulted him and the nature of the insult, because Greg Cote has a take that no one else has, which is that the best player in hockey, is it 3-time MVP? The best player in hockey is overrated.
Yeah,
so
McOverrated.
Overrated and underperforming.
Mm-hmm.
Which may be synonyms. I don't know. We don't want to split hairs.
I think you're going after the wrong star in this series so far. Draisaitl, not only
No. He has chosen the right star, Chris.
I'm just saying, in this series, though, McDavid, even though he hasn't scored yet, McDavid is flying around. Like, McDavid's playing much better than Draisaitl in this series so far.
Well, Draisaitl, don't get me started on him. The filthiest player in the history of hockey.
Oh, God.
Should be deported to Germany.
Come on.
I don't want to get started on that.
He should be out for the series.
It's just ridiculous, though.
Come on.
But let me tell you my reporting on how McDavid knows about who I am and what I said, and it's of course the reporting of another reporter, Alex Baumgartner from 5 Reasons Sports was in the Elbo Room after Game 1, and he sees somebody else tells him that's Connor McDavid's dad at the bar. So Alex sidles up to him, wants to buy him a drink. They get to chit-chatting. He introduces himself as a local journalist covering the Panthers, and McDavid's dad gives him a side eye and goes, "You're not that Greg Cote, are you?"
No way.
Wow.
So,
Are you public enemy number 1 in Canada right now?
Except in little pockets of Calgary where they hate Edmonton. Maybe they like me there, but otherwise, yeah, I would say.
What does your name mean in French? Because it's always pronounced that way
Cote,
there.
yeah.
Nobody pronounces it Cody. What does your name mean in French?
I believe it means coast coast or coastal region, something like that.
And you felt how when you realized that your words had wounded the father who helped in conceiving Connor McDavid.
Literally the father of McJesus. That makes him God.
McJoseph.
McGod. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to be
McHolySpirit too.
I'm trying not to be Greg Gloaty here. I don't want to gloat. It's 2 games. McDavid could spin a hat trick in Game 3 and everything changes. But for now, I stand by what I said about him being McOverrated, simply because for all his numbers, for all his stats, 9 seasons without a Stanley Cup, and based on a 2-0 deficit, looks like it might complete that run and still make him cupless.
I just want to know, though, in the last 2 games, how many times, just alone in your thoughts, you've just had the thought of, holy shit, he's good.
Oh, I have, for sure. But I knew that. The one thing
his point.
The one thing I knew about him is his speed, and his speed is something. He gets open shots based solely on speed, and the other thing he's got is that spin move where he's going in one direction and he turns around. I don't know what the hockey experts call that move, but it's unlike many do with such perfection. So I get why people think he's the greatest in the game. But my point is he ain't going to be the greatest in the game, nor will he ever be unless he starts winning Stanley Cups.
I legitimately did not believe that the Oilers could be made to look like that. Okay, because you're talking about just never mind the 5-on-5 stuff. You're talking about a power play that scores goals more than once out of every 3 times. Like, I just didn't think that I could watch a playoff game that involved those players and have not be afraid of the Oilers, not have them have any legitimate chances throughout the game. This did not require anything from Bobrovsky.
This was the narrative before the Rangers series. That power play they have is unstoppable, and the Panthers stopped it. Like, the narrative needs to switch to the Panthers' power penalty kill is just amazing. That's the story of this series.
Right. The power play hasn't been great. They scored their first power play goal last night.
You're dealing with Edmonton's power penalty kill is the best in the league. Panthers is second. So you're not going to see a lot of power play goals.
Let me do it this way, okay? Because Edmonton,
you can hear the arena in my voice.
Well, I heard the quarterdeck in your voice.
And your dad's.
Yeah.
Edmonton had, 30-plus straight penalty kills in the playoffs. But to me, the other thing that I simply can't believe it, Stugotz. When Paul Maurice gets here and they change the way that they're playing hockey because they were the best offensive team in the regular season, everyone told us that does not work in the playoffs, and you saw it. Tampa Bay strangled them and just made them look impotent. For their penalty kill to be so good that the Edmonton Oilers during the regular season would score once out of every 3 times when they have a man advantage, because you give McDavid a man advantage, and it is the unholiest thing possibly in the history of the sport that they would score 1 goal every 3 chances when they have a man advantage. To stop them 7 straight times at the most important time to make that offense look that kind of neutral, I just didn't think it was possible. I didn't think that the Panthers' best against Edmonton's best would be 0-for-7 for Edmonton. Just wouldn't have wanted it, wouldn't have wanted a situation where you're telling me that Edmonton has had 7 chances at this, because I wouldn't have thought there would be any circumstance under which Florida would kill all the penalties.
It's really crazy when you think about it, because we talked to Carter Verhaeghe last week and we said, what can't you guys do? And he said, we can't commit penalties. And yet they have committed 7 penalties. That was the talk. Everyone talked about that headed into the series, and the Panthers have been great at killing the penalties. And Bob did. I know he didn't need to be great last night, but he's been great. And I am laughing out loud that the conversation has gone from let's bench him 2 years ago for Spencer Knight to Sean McDonough saying, wow, Bob, 2 wins away from the Hall of Fame.
They did bench him. They did. It wasn't, as we said yesterday, it wasn't us benching him. The Panthers benched him.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Last night, Mikkola almost gets an own goal. And then on the and then Bob almost gets an assist from the almost own goal. Mikkola never scores. Oh, just what a team. What a time.
Okay,
the barn was rocking last night, Dan.
Sure.
Well, I saw that Barstool said that there were some empty seats there. I
That's
saw.
ridiculous.
I don't know about that.
Is that true?
It's true
Boston
that Barstool
haters.
said it. It's not true that there were empty seats.
Empty seats in the press box? Because I know who's to blame.
Greg Cote is trying to get a new nickname for Bobrovsky off the ground.
Yeah, it doesn't flow off the tongue. I want to hold it up for visual effect as I say it because maybe it's an inside journalism thing. I don't know, but this is my
Just talking to the mic.
This is good.
it's my proposed new nickname for Bobrovsky because, as you can see,
We'll hold it towards the
It's a
camera.
podcast, so maybe say it also.
Sergei Bobrovsky.
Nice.
Oh.
Because as great as he is at the crease, at the net, he is that bad speaking into a microphone and making no effort to be
Worse
better.
than you, Greg, because right now you criticizing him for speaking poorly into the microphone when you set all of that up by fishing through your notes and talking away
That's
from
rich.
the microphone.
Yeah, Sergei Bobrovsky. That's my new nickname for him. And it isn't the language thing. He's a Russian man. He speaks very semi-fluent.
Very limited English.
No, I wouldn't call it limited. It's heavily accented English, but I wouldn't call it limited. He speaks English.
Greg, he's fighting through his second language. It is
Right.
hard in your second language to be a effervescent, fluorescent quote.
Okay. All right. I don't know how many times you've spoken to Bobrovsky.
I have spoken to
Bad
Bobrovsky.
quotes.
He's really boring, but he's
Well,
also
yes, thank you.
But he's trying to do it in his second language.
He's not trying hard enough. He isn't. He speaks English. He just doesn't care to be quotable. After game one, when he has one of the best games in his career,
He said, "Hey, we got to reset here. It's just game one." I
says
thought
we
that was
get-
interesting.
Locked in.
He says it's fun. It's a fun challenge. We got to we're looking ahead to game two. Do better. If he was half the quote that he is the goaltender, it would be a wonderful thing.
Well, which do you think's more important this time of year?
Oh, your point is well taken.
Right. Listen, you can't claim that you're a homer. I mean, you're picking on both teams here.
No, wait till we get to his Barkov opinions if you want to hear the homer.
Stugotz here. Summertime is here, which means travel season is upon us. If you're like me and love to travel during the warmer months, the first thing you worry about before traveling is how safe will my home be while I'm away? I no longer worry about that now that I have Simply Safe installed in my home. I've had my Simply Safe system in place for several years now, and it's giving me such peace of mind. Simply Safe is advanced home security that puts you first. I have the wireless indoor camera. It allows me to see what's going on inside my home. They have a variety of indoor and outdoor cameras plus sensors to detect break-ins, fires, floods, and more. Simply Safe has been named in U.S. News and World Report's Best Home Security Systems for 5 years running and ranked the best customer service in home security by Newsweek and by Stugotz. Simply Safe has given me real peace of mind. I want you to have it too. Right now, get 20% off any Simply Safe system with Fast Protect monitoring at simplysafe.com/DLB. Again, get 20% off any new Simply Safe system with Fast Protect monitoring at simplysafe.com/DLB. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
Dan Le Batard.
He has been great. He's made great hires.
I said all.
We've said all.
He said all that. Yeah.
We've said all that.
Everyone has said everything.
Everyone here-
First time I heard any of this, Greg.
Everything you're saying,
It's all been said.
it's all been said.
Okay, you got to understand one thing.
Stugotz.
Me maximum.
That's
Until
right.
I say it, it hasn't been said.
Boom.
Okay, understand that.
You're the mayor.
Until I say it, it hasn't been said.
Me maximum. Me maximum.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz.
Jessica, just out of curiosity, I want to know how you experienced all of this, because as Greg Cote files the criticism of Do Better, and what we all just witnessed together is him fishing a prop in his papers because he was going to go to this big move of I've got a new nickname for Sergei Bobrovsky.
Yes,
and
it's
for him,
catching on. Dan just said it.
for him to fish through his things and talk away from the microphone, deliver it that poorly, and for his punchline to what remains largely an audio audience to be the visual humor of looking at the wrong camera when he tells Bobrovsky to do better in his second language when he's so poor in his first. Jessica, your thoughts were what?
Well, I thought that it was a bad name until you agreed with him, and now it's like kind
Thank you.
of seems like you proved his point, Dan.
Thank you.
I hate to say it. Also, You can't call Greg a bad quoteski because he went viral in all of Canada last week while you were out of town, I should add. So Greg really kind of does know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Dan's on vacation doing God knows what, God knows where, and I'm here making international news.
Exactly.
I don't know what else I can do.
Holding down the fort.
For the record, who's talked to Bobrovsky the most in that room?
Yeah.
Seems like it's a contest.
How many times for you, Greg?
I mean, this postseason alone?
Yeah.
15.
Wow, Dan?
Well, you're going to him a lot for someone who thinks he's a terrible quote.
You have to. You know, it's the same way. It reminds me of Dan Marino in his prime. Okay, Marino, another bad quote. Another actively bad quote. But you had to go to Marino. Win or lose, star of the game, bad game, you had to go to Marino. And it's the same with Bob. You have to go to him and pray that he's going to say something other than, oh, he's a good opponent. We're looking ahead to game 2. That's it. You know, and then you move on to somebody who's actually going to give you something that you can put between quote marks.
You ever think maybe so Evan Rodriguez is going to try to learn Spanish in the offseason, I guess. You ever think about maybe learning Russian so you come back next year and you talk to Bad Quoteski and see if maybe he has more to give you in Russian?
You should do better.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. You want him to help you do your job better? He's doing fine at his job. You should do your job better by learning Russian.
Yeah,
this isn't Russia. Greg, listen, he draws the line at where he has to do work.
Not yet. Not yet. Yeah. Give Trump a minute.
I'm not sure who's had a better week, Greg Cote or Bobrovsky.
Well, Greg.
Billy makes a good point. I am going to learn Russian.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I am.
I can teach you a Russian word.
Oh, really? What is it?
Sour cream.
That's
Smetana.
Russian? Smetana?
My last name means sour cream.
You're Russian?
Wow, how about that?
Yeah.
Like 10% check.
Okay. I'm going to learn Russian, and the first thing I'm going to say in Russian is get out of Ukraine. But seriously,
Oh, you had nothing after that, huh?
I mean,
we would laugh, we'd move on, cackle.
That's interesting. You put the pause there the way Seinfeld does in a routine for the laughter, and the symbol for boron, and then he just waits for laughter.
No, they all
you
do
did it your way, but you had nothing after that.
Yeah,
you just had the Ukraine joke. You saw stares, blank stares, and you waited for the laugh, and you got nothing.
I thought that was plenty. I thought that was probably too much on the subject.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably was.
Well, it's your show. Move on from it.
Greg, you said that you've spoken to Sergei Bobrovsky 15 times this postseason.
Well, probably not because
they played 11 games at home.
Okay, I was going to say I only do it over after home games, and I'm rounding up. You know, don't
11, 15,
details.
Same thing.
Seriously.
Right. Mm-hmm.
18. They played 18 games in the postseason, right?
Yeah.
19, something like that. I don't deal in details. I deal in.
It's not a mathematician.
When it gets that high, right? I mean, you talk to him all the time. He's your friend.
Zagak. Bad Quoteski. It's not bad.
I like that he printed it out on a piece of paper.
I
though.
know.
Like he had this bit planned.
I did. I wasted a piece
You'd
of
have
notebook
no
paper.
proof that it was planned from the way that it was delivered.
It was planned this morning. It was planned this morning after 3 hours sleep. You got to give me a break.
I have a question. So full disclosure, I watched the Fever Sun game last night, and then I went to bed at like 9 o'clock. So I did not watch any, but I was keeping up following Billy's tweets because he was keeping everyone informed via Twitter on what was going on. What is this clip that we have been replaying all morning at this chokehold that I'm watching right here?
Well, let's get into this in a second because I want to get into this. I want to get into the dirty play. I want to get into Greg Cote's homerism. But first, I don't want to just skip past Connor McDavid's father at the Elbo Room.
It's great.
At the Elbo Room. I've explained this to the audience before. The Elbo Room is dirty Fort Lauderdale from the dirtiest times in Fort Lauderdale. Back when spring break was banned, the amount of awful that has happened in that place per square foot is dirtier than anywhere else in the region of Fort Lauderdale throughout the history of Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
It is a concrete slab of people do bad things in and around the Elbo Room.
All you need to know about the Elbo Room is that that's where Buffalo Bills fans go when they come to town.
Yeah, but once you start your night at the Elbo Room, everything after that, bad. You make bad decisions after you spend an hour at the Elbo Room.
That's the place my parents warned me of going when I was like a high school kid going out in Fort Lauderdale. It was like, as long as you don't go to the Elbo Room.
I will explain to those who do not know that the Elbo Room has not changed in 70 years. and hasn't been cleaned all that often in those 70 years. Like, bad stuff happens in and around the Elbo Room. So for Connor McDavid to be, for his father to be there in tourist Fort Lauderdale and someone to offer to buy him a drink, and for him to know that Greg Cote has called his son overrated, the only person in North America willing to stake that claim, must be a career highlight to Greg Cote, who was feeling so good upon entry in here today. I'm not making this part up. He told me again after all these years, I could defend that column I wrote about trading Dan Marino to keep Scott Mitchell.
Yeah, this is the time to do it.
I'm saying today he came in here, probably the most famous sports column ever written in South Florida. He came in here saying, no, I can still defend that. It's a defendable column.
Oh, it is. 100%. And will be until Connor McDavid starts winning Stanley Cups. That's plural, Stanley Cups. Otherwise, I would rather have Barkov as my centerman than McDavid. Barkov is a two-way player. He's the Selke Award winner. He plays 200 feet of ice.
Plays on the penalty kill.
McDavid does not, and McDavid was a defensive liability, particularly in Game 1. So unless McDavid is scoring and assisting, if he's having a quiet game offensively, he's a net negative on the ice.
Stugotz, one of the things that I was saying in just really being stunned that anyone could do that to Edmonton offensively, they're playing McDavid a ton of minutes. They're not even being reasonable about how they're using him.
I mean, more than his normal 7 to 8 minutes per game.
This is going to get really scary if Barkov has to miss, though.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
I don't know if we want to get to that yet, but...
It gets scary because it goes to Edmonton, so you're just scared.
It's scary regardless, but if we don't have Barkov, holy shit.
Yeah. Can we give that reporter some credit to be at the Elbo Room, to go up to Connor McDavid's dad, to get, to ask the question that needed to be asked, because no one else did it. That is a great job.
He wasn't asking him a question. He was just offering to buy him a drink.
Well, but he got to expense that whole night because he got something newsworthy out of it, right?
I'm pretty sure Cody's going to expense it. I'm pretty sure Cody's going to expense it for getting the little bit of content that he got out.
Do we know if that
exchange? $20.
Do we know if that exchange was on the record?
I mean, I don't know how drunk McDavid's dad was.
Right. So it wasn't on the record. We don't know if it was on the record.
Did the 5 reasons guys say you could tell this?
Hell no. Nor did I ask him.
Right. His fault for telling you.
Yeah, why is he talking to a reporter?
It's not off the record unless you say it's off the record.
Right, exactly.
It's assumed that it's on the record.
Well, since when is it off the record? A guy saying, "You're not Greg Cote, are you?" What is that, an incendiary quote?
Yeah.
Powder keg quote?
Whatever is said at the Elbo Room doesn't matter. It's on the record.
Right. And by the way, the Elbo Room.
It's the Elbo Room. I mean,
I think it should be off the record. I think anything said at the Elbo Room.
Oh, that's funny coming from you, Dan. Everything's on the record with you. Even the off the record things that we tell you that are not for air become content in the meeting.
Not at the Elbo Room. No one can claim here that they've ever said to me anything at the Elbo Room that has ended up on the record. The Elbo Room is a sacred place. What happens at the Elbo Room stays at the Elbo Room.
Yes. Apparently not.
And you need to get permission on all of that. I couldn't believe that as you delivered that story, it was your son hearing it for the very first time. I can't believe that you saved that exclusively for our air.
Well, I just heard it last night, and I hadn't seen Christopher until this morning, so it's not like I'm calling him at 2:30 a.m. when I get home to share that anecdote, So, but in to your point, I should have saved it for the Greg Cote Show podcast. And,
a tearjerker this week, the Greg Cote Show featuring Greg Cote. There were some tears, as Greg is prone to do when he talks about his own father, not his kids, but his father.
Yeah, with.
Fine.
Yeah, no, it was. We had a good show. I talked about my dad, which choked me up a couple of times, if I'm being truthful. Christopher talked about me in a way that was more heartfelt on the air than I've ever heard him.
I emoted.
Graceland sang a song about her father, which was adorable, but went on too long. And note to Yeti.
I think we cut it down, didn't we?
The 6-year-old needed some editing?
It's still a little long. Nobody wants to hear 2.5 minutes of a 6-year-old repeating herself.
Put it on the poll.
But it was adorable.
Juju, put it on the poll. Does anyone want to hear 2.5 minutes of a 6-year-old repeating herself?
It was my daughter freestyling about me.
She was. It was great.
Tighten it up, though.
Tighten it up. It's absolutely right.
Yeah, it should have been, but that's okay. So listen to the podcast, Greg Cote Show, wherever you get pods.
More like Graceland Long-Quote-Ski.
I like it. Long-winded ski. No, it was good. It was fine. But
folks, it's Mike Ryan. I want to talk to you about Game Time. As you know, it's the summer. That means summer concert season. A lot of big-time concerts out there. A lot of desirable tickets, a lot of sold-out tickets. And what do you do when the primary market is sold out? You turn to the secondary market, and that is often a headache. But it is not a headache with Game Time. It is my go-to for the secondary market. And if, on the small chance, you find a better price out there, don't worry. Game Time has a low price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying things like NBA Finals tickets and concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code DAN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code DAN for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Dan Le Batard.
A woman who was out swimming with her friends is believed to have been swallowed whole by a 13-foot shark without any of her friends noticing. That's the weirdest part about that story. You're swimming with friends, you're having a good time, and then all of a sudden people are looking around going, where's Shelly? Like, nobody screamed?
Every friend group has a Shelly, though, that if they go missing because a shark ate them whole, you wouldn't notice.
Classic Shelly.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stugotz.
She went quietly, apparently. If I'm swallowed whole by a shark, you're going to know it.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz.
Jessica, to answer your question from before on the video that we are playing of Ekblad choking out Bouchard, this was a dirty game. Bouchard, it looks like he's tapping out on that Draymond Green, Rudy Gobert.
Do you think he let up when he felt the tap? It's just like natural, like, okay, maybe too much.
No, it doesn't seem like he let up at all. The Panthers would be permitted to be upset about what happened to Barkov. The best case scenario is that Barkov has a broken jaw, Stugotz, because you can play through a broken jaw. We've talked about the absurdity of Jeremy Roenick, doctors telling him, hey, you need to keep your jaw wired shut. And he's like, no, I don't. And he did it with pliers. He undid the wires in his jaw with pliers and ignored doctors because hockey players are crazy. But they'll keep him out if he has a concussion. And the hit on Barkov, a lot of people are saying is dirty. It obviously is a dirty hit. It should be penalized. It was penalized. But I don't believe that it should be suspension. And I don't know what's going to happen there. But if Barkov is indeed out, we'll get an update today. It is, as Chris said, terrifying. It's the injury they could least afford to have because you hurt. I mean, Kachuk it can be neutralized in this series. He can be in a situation where it doesn't feel like he's that impactful. And you heard Mike yesterday talking about maybe they have to take him off the ice more because of the speed. But outside of Bobrovsky and Barkov, Stugotz,
right?
Those are their guys. They're middle of everything they do defensively. They're why it is that Edmonton would end up looking like that in that game. And him getting hurt, Greg, I'd like to get your thoughts because you were unhinged coming in here. You were mad at Draisaitl. You were mad at everybody.
It was a dirty, rotten play. And the reason it was that it looked calculated. It looked intentional. It looked like what it was, star-on-star crime. One guy meaning to take out the other team's best player. It was a elbow, a forearm to the jaw, neck, head region There was no excuse for it. He absolutely should be suspended for at least one game.
When you say star on star, that's actually like if it was a bruiser that doesn't play anything going in there, then that's like, oh, that's clear. This is just Draisaitl. It's a dirty play. I'm not defending the play, but did you have the same energy for Bennett in the Boston series? Because I feel like you're just doing the homer thing. Like if this was Barkov on Draisaitl, I don't feel like you'd have the same energy.
Okay, if the analogy here doesn't involve Sam Bennett, the analogy here would be Matthew Tkachuk taking out McDavid. I mean, this is you have to protect, and I'm talking about referees here. You have to protect the star players, just like the NFL protects quarterbacks. When you go at Barkov, the best player on the Panthers, unquestionably, with a penalty with a hit like that, that is a heinous hockey crime. And he should be suspended.
But that's one of their best players. Like if they were just going to be thuggery,
it's not a goon,
they
right?
wouldn't pick
I
him. Like
understand that.
you're
Right.
saying it's star on star, making that seem like that it should be more penalized. Like star on star, it's like two guys going at each other.
I don't think. Look, it's not Chris Knobloch during a break saying, "Hey, go after Barkov." It's desperation driving Draisaitl to do what he did. It's pure desperation. He knows that they're not through 2 games. They know they're not going to beat the Panthers 5-on-5 or straight up. The only way they're going to beat the Panthers is by doing what they did, which is by taking out Florida's best player, the two-way forward defenseman who's been neutralizing McDavid so far.
Let me explain just to the audience, if you don't care about some of what it is that's happening here in terms of how good Barkov is. When you have Wayne Gretzky, Stugotz, who usually doesn't say a whole lot of interesting things. Wayne Gretzky for a long time has been on these broadcasts just because he's Wayne Gretzky, and it's rare, that Tom Brady and Wayne Gretzky are analyzing games.
There are very few guys who say anything interesting. I mean, that's what I've concluded
but
here.
Gretzky is there. Well, Gretzky is there to be Gretzky. But when he's saying, it's not just anybody saying it. When he's saying that Barkov is the best defensive player he's seen since Brian Trottier, going back to his old 70s, 80s hockey.
Decades ago.
Yeah.
It is a high compliment. It's among the highest compliments you can get coming from that guy. But what happened with Barkov, because you're saying it's dirty and the Panthers play like that, you're playing the result on the injury. You wouldn't have cared about that hit at all if it hadn't resulted in an injury. You wouldn't be calling for a suspension if it hadn't resulted in injury, because you shouldn't be leaving your feet like that to go with an elbow or a forearm.
You shouldn't launch yourself at someone's head, Dan.
Agreed, but
Right.
you see that. I mean, the Panthers play like that. Like the Panthers.
Well, hockey's played like
That's
that.
what I'm saying,
times,
like-
But the
right?
Panthers, everyone in the sport hates the Panthers because they play like that.
Okay, but you have to play the result, okay? If you shoot me and you kill me, that's a worse crime than if you give me a flesh wound. In this case, if Barkov is not injured, of course there isn't the outrage. But it's still a dirty play.
But is it the act? No, wait a minute.
You don't go to somebody's neck, jaw, head region with a forearm.
Agreed.
You don't.
I'm responding to your response, though, because you are protectively running to the aid of Barkov there, and I'm talking about you penalize the action, correct? Or you penalize the result of the action?
I think you take both into account. I do. If I'm reviewing this for the league, I take into account the action itself, which to me is worthy of a suspension. But I also take into account that this seemed like a calculated play intended to do what it did, which likely it could change the entire series, this play.
You're saying it was intentional. You're saying someone ordered a code red, essentially.
I'm saying it. Look. I can't prove that it was intentional.
Right.
I'm saying it looked like that to me. It looked calculated. It wasn't done against a third line player.
I understand.
It was done against Barkov.
I understand that, but Dan is asking, Chris is asking, if the roles are reversed, are you that passionate if it's a Panther guy doing it to an Oiler?
I would say you don't forearm somebody in the.
Are you
in the
calling
neck
for
jaw.
Suspension?
Yes, he already did that.
No, he's saying if it was reversed, would he call for the suspension?
Yes.
Is the series still 2-0 Panthers or is it 2-0 Oilers? Because then there's the intention.
I understand,
What
right.
he's arguing is
Yes.
the intention is that he lost his cool and he went after him.
I'm not even saying you're wrong, Greg. I think he should be suspended for a game.
I would be okay with the league saying if Barkov can't play, Draisaitl suspended.
Yeah.
If Barkov can play, Draisaitl can play.
Eye for an eye.
Yeah.
So do you bench Barkov so Draisaitl doesn't play?
No.
You say he's hurt.
That is honestly an interesting because Draisaitl's their second best player.
That's what I'm saying.
Barkov is
And
that
I-
important.
So announce it early.
Barkov
Announce it
is
right
that
now.
important to stopping McDavid that I would.
That's funny.
I would keep
The
Draisaitl.
way you guys are doing that is both funny and it's the way that should be, because I wouldn't suspend any of that, but you can't reward Draisaitl for that by knocking out Barkov.
Right.
Like, that can't end up in a net positive for Edmonton.
No Barkov, and he still gets to play?
Draisaitl, you're suspended for as long as Barkov is out.
Against my dad's point, that's why they usually send a bruiser out there, someone they don't give a shit if they get suspended. That's why the fact that it's Draisaitl is less of a reason for me that he should be suspended.
He's the last guy or the second to last guy you would choose. You would order a code red.
all that proves is that this didn't come from the bench. Hey, let's target Barkov. This came from Draisaitl. And you know, it's, look, Badkowski gets all the attention for the Panthers when he's doing great, but Barkov is their star player. He's their McDavid, unequivocally. And the way that they took him out of the game, possibly for at least a game or two, it's potentially going to change this series, and it's a hockey crime, and he should be suspended.
Look, I'm not trying to start nothing here, but I don't know, man. That looked shady to me. Code red, like in A Few Good Men. I'm just saying, like, what's that play right there? I didn't like that. And you go with what? Their best player? I don't like that. Code red.
Was that your limited fake or not limited enough fake, Brian Scalabrine?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Scal.
I have in front of me a quote from Paul Maurice. This isn't the Oprah Winfrey show. My feelings don't matter when asked about Barkov. First of all, Coach, your feelings do matter. Second of all, is there still an Oprah Winfrey show, or is there just an Oprah Winfrey network? Is there an actual still? Is he referencing a show that went off the air 20 years ago?
I think so, but it works.
Yeah,
it works.
Because that's wouldn't it be The View is the modern the place where we talk about our feelings? Like, what would
Dr. Phil?
what is
Kelly Clarkson?
What is the modern place that Jennifer Hudson, like, what is the modern place where people talk about their feelings? Because I legitimately am asking you, when did the Oprah Winfrey show go off of the air? Because she has her own network and she has an assortment of shows on that network, but I don't think any of them are the Oprah Winfrey show.
Well, she has a show, but she doesn't have the show anymore. Like, she has, like you mentioned, she has a whole production company, Harpo, I think it's called. Yeah, but the last episode of the show was, I think, when I was in high school. So it was like 2000. That makes sense. 2011.
This is a good conversation. I'm glad we're having it. I think that Oprah Winfrey show is eternally qualified as a metaphor for touchy-feely. And so I think Maurice's quote, particularly in the context of Badkowski, Maurice is an example. That was a great quote, okay? You light up if you're a member of the media hearing that. And even at his lowest moment, Paul Maurice's funereal, you knew just from his demeanor that Barkov was hurt.
He was a vibe last night.
It was like
the, the angriest he's seemed after a game.
Oh, he was totally different.
We're up 2-0 in the final, and he just had a vibe.
Yeah. I would not call, though, being up 2-0 in the final Paul Maurice's lowest moment.
There is the Oprah Winfrey Show, the podcast. So
really?
Oprah Winfrey Network podcast has the Oprah Winfrey Show, the podcast.
Too.
I got to tell you, it's a nice little network. They have 2020 running on a loop the entire night, Sunday and Monday. They have Love It or Listed on a loop on Tuesday nights. It's fantastic.
Love It or Listed?
Yeah, it's great.
Wow.
Yeah, marathons every Tuesday and Wednesday. I mean,
the empire she has built. You should read what she's doing in Hawaii, how it is that the road to Hana is like blocked off because of where she's putting her stuff. Her and Zuckerberg are just buying giant plots of land in Hawaii so that when the apocalypse comes, they can hide in their bunkers.
They're good.
Yeah.
She made Dr. Phil, right?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Makes everyone. I mean,
my guess is that she has some regret about that one.
What about Dr. Oz? Was that an Oprah thing too?
She made a whole lot of people. My God, her tree. I mean, Gayle King.
She has a medical school, I think.
She's had a big and amazing life, but I do think that the quote that made Greg Cote light up is from a TV show he's referencing that has now been defunct for 14 years.
Yeah. That's the way my mind works. When you were talking about the Elbo Room earlier, my mind immediately went to, that goes back to the days of beach blanket bingo and Connie Francis and Frankie Avalon on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, right in the shadow of where Connor McDavid's dad was getting shit-faced. Allegedly.
Shit-faced?
Yeah. Allegedly. I wasn't there. I wasn't there.
Greg Cote, at every opportunity, is dying to make a Frankie Avalon in Fort Lauderdale reference.
Stugotz here. Summertime is here, which means travel season is upon us. If you're like me and love to travel during the warmer months, the first thing you worry about before traveling is, how safe will my home be while I'm away? I no longer worry about that now that I have SimpliSafe installed in my home. I've had my SimpliSafe system in place for several years now, and it's given me such peace of mind. SimpliSafe is advanced home security that puts you first. I have the wireless indoor camera. It allows me to see what's going on inside my home. They have a variety of indoor and outdoor cameras plus sensors to detect break-ins, fires, floods, and more. SimpliSafe has been named in U.S. News and World Report's best home security systems for 5 years running and ranked the best customer service in home security by Newsweek and by Stugotz. SimpliSafe has given me real peace of mind. I want you to have it too. Right now, get 20% off any SimpliSafe system with Fast Protect monitoring at simplisafe.com/DLB. Again, get 20% off any new SimpliSafe system with Fast Protect monitoring at simplisafe.com/DLB. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
We are audiostack.ai.
Combining AI writing, the best synthetic voices,
with production and delivery.
Be it ads, podcasts, or VOs for video.
Just like this ad.
How would you utilize AI audio? For free.
Go to audiostack.ai/contest.
Give us just a few details.
And you could replace this spot and be heard by millions.
See webpage for T's and C's. audiostack.ai/contest.